sometimes minutes of time when I'm painting.
Mm.
And there is that feeling of being absolutely guided and shape, form, color, texture just streaming in. And I can step back and think, I don't know, I don't actually have a memory of doing that.
Okay.
And such a beautiful passage of paint. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And sometimes excitement, and it is about getting myself out of the way. It is about taking a sideways step and being really humble and saying, yeah, I think humble is an underused word, actually. I always thought it was ever so kind of, ingratiating, like the kind of Charles Dickens character of ever so humble and just kind of weaselly. But actually, it's an important word. Humbly, okay, I step aside because there's a greater power at work here, and I can be the talented technician.
Yeah, done through, as David Hoffman calls it. So the flow state is really being done through, and then that opens you to pure formless awareness because it's coming through, it's streaming through, and you're just allowing it. And then it expresses, paradoxically, it expresses sometimes magnificently in form.
Yes,
so you paint, and then you have a form, you have a painting, and people would go, but that's not formless awareness. But it came from formless awareness.
Yeah, and it's expressing itself through objects or people or creatures that we would recognize, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just what it is. It's a passage of paint that's suggestive to all sorts of things, and then others start to see what they see in the paint. And I love that, because I say, well, over to you. They'll say, what's this about? I said, well, I've explained what I feel. I've done the work. Now it's over to you. It's not my job anymore to tell you what you're seeing or feeling or believing about that.
Yeah, which is, guess what it's about. So you stream through, and then it's painted from a state of presence, as Eckhart Tolle would call it. And then you're like, okay, well, how you interpret that's up to you.
Yeah.
Like it, don't like it.
Yeah, hate it. Some people very disturbed. Oh, Iona, what are you doing? What's the? Oh no. Oh no.
That says more about them than about the painting.
I know.
It's their own. I was actually chatting to Elaine about it and said, yeah, you actually just have to put it out there, and if people don't like it, then they're not the right people for your art. They're not the right people to exhibit with or whatever. It's fine. It's a resonant frequency, and if it doesn't resonate, and truly, if it's inspired, it's probably not going to resonate with everyone, because there's many people who are not at that level who will go, oh, I don't like that, and they won't even know why. It's just like a subconscious resistance to that energy. And so you represent the divine energy, and then when we know the ego resists that, and most people are at an ego level, so then don't expect everyone to like it, but it's there for those who will like it, who will resonate with it. That's the point. So.
Can I ask about this dream that came back again? It's the only dream I that recurs with me, and it is about being given lines and the expectation to say the lines as an actor on stage. And every time I'm saying, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I haven't read the part. Right. And last night it was Judi Dench relying on me.
What, Judi Dench is in your dream?
Yeah, it was her and me, and I was just, somebody else take this on. I can't. It's not me.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not the guy.
No. Are you a guy in the? Are you playing a man or a woman?
I was a female me. I was very much seeing myself actually in female form.
Okay. Have you ever done any drama, any acting?
No, my sister's an actor.
Okay.
But this dream of not knowing my lines and or turning up and I haven't signed on to the course. I never signed on to this course. I never accepted the audition.
You don't know how you got there.
Don't know how I got here.
Interesting.
That's another way.
You remember the scene in The Matrix where the Oracle says to Neo, she says, "You got the gift, but I don't know what you're waiting for. You're waiting for something. Who knows? Your next life." Maybe it's something like that. It's, again, I mean, interpretation, it's over to you. You know, there's many ways of interpreting dreams, but it's like you're not ready. And so maybe the dream is symbolic, like you're not stepping into your full power.
Yeah.
Really accepting, okay, yes, I am ready to step up and to be used. I don't know my lines. But actually you do know your lines.
Oh, maybe it's a trust. Step forward, you will be guided at every step of the way. Just step onto the stage and Judi Dench is waiting for you. Yeah. Well, symbolic maybe. Okay, so you're an artist. It's about exhibiting your works, about getting your work out there. And it's the same kind of creative flow afterwards of, you know, whether you're a painter or an actor, you know, you demonstrate, you let your work out to the world. And so maybe it's like you're not expressing it because I don't know my lines, because I'm not quite ready, because I don't really trust myself, because I'm going to stand in front of everyone and not know my lines and make a fool of myself. So it's symbolic of, you know, even though you do, you know, your art is as you even said, amazing. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment, but you know, it sounds like amazing work. It's just a resistance of like, no, I'm not quite ready because I don't know my lines, because I might be judged, people might reject me. I think, you know, that's probably the symbolism of it. Yeah, I can see. If you work with that resistance, you might find that dream changes. The next time you dream, oh, actually, I do know my lines. There's Judi Dench waiting for me, and I actually know the lines. I say them. And interesting, because you know what I suggested? Something's just come to me. Maybe this might be something to explore as well. So Katie's writing this poetry, and I was like, well, why doesn't Iona paint the poetry? So there's lines there. Why don't you paint it? Like paint I mean, isn't that like amazing? I've never seen that, but have you seen poetry ever painted? Have you seen that? There are performance artists. There are performance artists who, and I was invited to paint as this guy played at a local church. Okay. And this was on a Friday, and I'd never met the guy, and this performance was on Wednesday. So I said, no. You know, that was a big step forward for me to do that. But part of me. Why did you say no? Part of me do it. Yeah, well, good question. It's like an invitation. Why don't you just go and say, all right, well, let's try it. What's the worst that can happen? It could be a bit of a shambles, but I tried it. Yeah. So maybe there's the, no, because I don't feel like I'm ready. Again, I don't know my lines. That's right. I'm not ready. There's these invitations from the spirit, and then you're not stepping up and saying, okay, I'm. Yeah. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting? Yeah, exactly. What the Oracle said to Nia. What are you waiting for? It's like a Taylor Swift song. Yeah. It was, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? So you got the gift, but then you're not. That's the self-belief that's lacking. Yeah, it is. And so the only way to overcome that is to do it. To go, okay, but go through this process, and this is a transformation process, and we'll get to your higher purpose. And then it's like, okay, I have to be willing to step up. If I get an invitation, I've got to step up and do it. Okay. And then you start learning. Look, actually, I can do it, and I'm never in the deep end, because the Spirit's with me and it's guiding me, and I'm again stepping out the way. It's not me who's doing it; it's the Spirit doing it. So, like, what am I waiting for? Why am I resistant when this all-powerful force? You know how powerful it is, comes through in your painting. But then I guess it's just allowing it to express in getting it out there. So like, okay, so one thing to paint it and put it on canvas in your studio, in the safety of your studio. No one's seeing it, no one's judging it. Another thing to go, okay, let's put this out there, and yes, potentially get criticism, but also potentially get praise and potentially help a lot of people to just connect. I mean, isn't that the point? I mean, art. I'm missing it. I'm missing it, and I know I'm going to step in again. I did say no to that performance art opportunity, but this was pre-reintroduction to Course in Miracles, thanks to John Z. Yeah.
So just, say, okay, I'm willing. And that's all you have to say every day. I'm willing. Okay, show me. I'm willing, show me. I'm willing, show me. Show me the way. What should I do? Where should I go? Who should I speak to? And you'll find that the opportunities come. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, I've got to step into it and do it. And it'll challenge you. It'll be like, oh, that's a bit, because that's how it goes. The hero's journey is not an easy one because you have to test yourself. You're pushing up against the limits of your own ego and your fear and that known world, the comfortable world. You've got to push through that and say, no, actually, so if any opportunity comes along to extend yourself beyond that, then take it. Yeah. And then one step leads to another. So if you take that and you stepped up, then, something else happens, because once you take one step down the road, then other things unfold. So you do an exhibition, say, and then some other an agent sees you, or some other gallery see, and then it's the next step, and and so you go, and the journey unfolds in a flowing way, and a year or two down the line, you're like, oh wow, that's actually pretty amazing. What happened? Step by step by step. But I was willing to take the first step. As Lao Tzu says, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take the first step.
It really has happened in the past, and steps and flows and opportunities, meetings and travel. It's just flowed and flowed. And then I can see what's happened in this life in the last 5 years with the death of both parents and divorce and moving and 4 children and new house, etc. It's been a lot showing up in form, and all that is just what it's shown up as. And now here's this big dream saying, you don't get much bigger than acting with Judi Dench, so do it.
Yeah, it's a good symbol.
Yeah.
So just do the Forrest Gump. Just do it.
Run, Forrest, run.
And he just doesn't think he can't, so he does, and he just does it. Because and all the more intelligent people are like, oh no, I can't do that, and I'm all kind of messed up inside because I've got all whatever their issues are. And Forrest just, okay, I'm just gonna do it. The Zen master, I'm just gonna do it. I'm like performing. Everyone's like, wow, you're so amazing. It's like, no, I'm just doing it. There's no like self-investment in the performance. That's really the key, isn't it? No self-investment. So the Spirit's doing it through me. I'm not self-invested. And you almost got to be detached. It's interesting because although the paintings flowed through you, you've got to then detach from it and go, it's not really even my work. It came through me. Exactly. So I put it out there. My only responsibility is to, as you say, be the technician. I'm just going to channel it and do it and then put it out there. That's my responsibility. How people take it, well, that's up to them because it's perceptual. And then then there's no attachment to it, and there's no fear, or it's like, I didn't even do this work. The Spirit did it through me.
Yeah.
So, and in that, there's the humbling. You see, that's what you said. He who humbles himself will be made great. So it's not Iona who did the painting. There's no self-investment there, and maybe there's still a little bit there. So then it's like, okay, but you got to let go of that little bit and say, I didn't really even do the painting.
Yeah.
Not really me. Okay. And then there's no fear. There can't be any resistance or fear because you didn't even do it.
Yeah.
And the Spirit is by definition worthy. This is truly coming from Spirit. It's like if anyone judges it as unworthy, that's entirely the ego judging it as unworthy. So it's like there's no personal attachment to it. And then you should be able to just overcome that resistance and that block and just allow it to. I'm not saying it's easy because you got to humble. Iona's got to disappear. Well, okay, that's not such an easy thing to do because we got the ego self that's there. But that's the whole process, and then your painting is part of that process. Your painting is your way that you journey, your hero's journey. We all have these things that we do. That's the way that it expresses for you and how you learn your lessons. So then. And that's the true purpose of it. It's there so you journey through the hero's journey and you undo yourself and you come into that, enlightened state of being done through, and the painting is the mechanism of that happening. One of the mechanisms, but it's for you. It's that's your passion. It's your primary career. It's your livelihood. So that becomes then okay. So Spirit uses that for your journey, and so that's the special function. The special function in this world is yes to paint, to get the stuff out there, and to let the Spirit guide you in that process. So you learn your own lessons, and you also become an instrument of helping others to learn their lessons through the medium of your art. And if that doesn't inspire you, nothing's going to inspire you, because that's the true purpose of it. There's no other higher purpose than that.
I'll have to give it a go in the next go round. No, I want to do it in this life.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Make the most of where you are from here, and step up and do it. And we'll cover this in exercise 9, so it's part of the course. I think you're already getting it, but it's just like, okay, do the exercise. You done exercise 5 and 6 yet?
Yeah.
Great. Do you want to show us your painting? Did you paint?
It's in my studio.
Okay.
Just a
Take
little drawing and a watercolor. I'll take a picture of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Take a picture and show us.
Finding your true identity. Wow. I'm looking at exercise 8, the blueprint for your higher self.
Yeah, okay. You jumped ahead a bit. Have you done exercise? You did exercise 5.
What was that again?
That was
the drawing.
Exercise 5 was naming your game, and saying, okay, so what is the key? What is the key word or phrase? What is the key word or phrase?
Oh, victimhood.
Playing the game of being a victim.
Playing the game of being a victim. After everything that's happened to me, poor me, I really need a break.
Well, that's a good insight. We'll dig deeper. We'll dig deeper into that.
Yeah.
We'll dig deeper into that on Sunday.
I've looked at the payoffs, which are massive, but the kind of mantra, getting my is even bigger. It's a truly unhelpful place to be.
Well, if you see it's not a payoff, it's really a cost. That's really the key.
There's a cost is huge.
And then you're not willing. If you see it clearly, are you willing to continue paying that cost? And then, if you say, how can you when you see it clearly? You're like, that's just not clever. That's just self-flagellation. It's hurting myself. It's limiting myself. Why would I want to continue doing that? And then you change. Then something in you goes, no, okay, this pattern needs to change. So that's the idea of the exercise. You bring it into the light, and then
it sure does. And I've told other people that they're victims.
It's called projection. Yeah.
No.
Oh, it's you. It's you. The problem's you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's right.
We all do it. It's very tempting. The ego likes to, convince us that it's not us, it's someone else. Because that's a projection of guilt, which means that the guilt is not mine, the guilt is someone else's. So then they'll be destroyed by God, not me. It's a kind of very insane thought system, but that's what it believes. So now I keep projecting my guilt to protect myself from this imagined judgment from God, who has no judgment of you at all. Pure form. It's bonkers. It's completely nuts. You got to just laugh at it. It's crazy. But that's the...
Yeah, it is. In fact, in this lesson, in whom he is well pleased. I love that phrase.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go to just ask if anyone else got anything to share. John, anything to share after last night? We had an interesting metaphysical conversation. We were just saying that it's about trust in the end. You've got to just trust. Like if Jesus says you won't find the answer rationally, then trust him. that the answer doesn't lie within the ego's thought system, and you have to just let it go and open to an experience. Are they frozen?
It was a good discussion. It was my fault, a lengthy discussion, and good to go through it again, actually.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the core. You do get to this point with the rational mind where you go, okay, so then why did the separation happen? How did it happen? If only oneness is true, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And as he said in that little passage you read, there's no answer rationally.
No.
Because the truth is, it never really happened, right? We're dealing with illusion here. It seemed to happen, and everything that came from it also seemed to happen. Now you're in the dream construct, and the only way out is to have an experience.
I did have, yeah, that's all fine, actually. I did have a thought in terms of on your diagram, the descent into hell, we have God, love, awareness.
Okay, and I'll pull that up for you. And how interesting is that? I went straight there today. I think we'll discuss that. So I just open it up. Yeah.
So that's our starting and end point. But also the Course says that we are extensions of God, and our purpose is the extension of God. So if once we've been through the descent and then we come back to God, love, and oneness, we're bringing back with us, if the journey actually happened, an increased, but we are extending God. You know, our journey is an extension of God. Therefore, when we come back to God, love, and oneness, we're actually reinforcing God, love, and oneness to the degree that it becomes an enhanced God, love, awareness.
Interesting. So what you're saying, it's enhanced, so it's changed now.
Yes.
No, well, that's not actually the case, because it's a stable state. It is.
Yeah.
What's changed is your awareness of it.
So why are we an extension of God then?
Well, again, it's language. We use that in this world, because in this world we seem to be separated. We seem to have another thing going on, another identity called the ego. So in this world, we say, well, you're the son of God, or the extension of this pure formless awareness, because that's your true nature. That's your mind is that. That awareness is your awareness. So we only need the language in an apparently separated state to remind us of who we really are. Okay, you're an extension of source, you're an extension of this. Okay, so now in our separated state, that can be helpful, it can awaken us to the truth that yes, there is this presence within us. But in absolute truth, there's no extension, it just is. Right? God is, and then we cease to speak. It just is. You are that presence. It is you. There's no separation. There's no extension in heaven. Heaven simply is a stable state of oneness. So perfect oneness is perfect oneness. And in this world, we'll use a word like, oh, well, we're an extension of pure formless awareness, because it helps us to recognize it. It helps us to remember it. It helps us to let go of the ego that blocks that. And we feel that there's maybe an extension. We feel an expansion in our consciousness, don't we? There's some kind of movement. We go, oh, okay, that actually feels better. That feels more expansive, feels more loving. And then we go, okay, well, God is extending through me. But actually what's happening is you simply going back into that pure formless awareness that you really are, which is infinite and eternal by its nature. And so it feels, compared with your limited self-image of the ego, it feels expansive, and it feels like there's an extension.
Yeah.
So the language then, it's a change because we've changed and put ourselves in this ridiculous position of thinking we are egos and victims of the world. That change now feels much more expansive. It feels like we're moving towards something much more expansive, that there's a movement, and then we could go, oh, God's changing. No, God's not changing. You're just changing your mind back to God.
Yeah.
And you're returning to what was your original state.
Yeah.
So you once had pure formless awareness. You still have it, but it's been buried underneath all the egoic thoughts. And now that journey feels like a journey. It feels like something's moving, and it feels like an expansion and an extension. And we use these words within the construct of the ego because they're helpful to awaken to that presence. But in truth, you're just returning to what you already were. In truth, there's been no change. So God hasn't expanded because of your expanded awareness. You haven't added anything to that. You are simply returning to an infinite, eternal state that has always been and always will be.
Yeah.
And you were simply unaware of it. And so then that feels in your personal experience like, yes, I've gone on a journey, and we have this whole, all of these are within the construct of the ego, the hero's journey, right? In truth, you already are there. There's no need to journey anywhere. But if you think you're separate, then there seems to be these phases of awakening, the call to adventure and going beyond the known and going through the challenges and temptations and having helpers and guides and going through the abyss and the death and the rebirth and then the transformation and then that one man. All of that feels a journey. It feels like something's moved, something's changed. I've become more expanded. By the time you're here and you return, you're a more expanded self. There's a sense of a bigger sense of self in the good sense of the word. You're more connected to source at one moment. You're more one with your source. Now you bring that back and you help someone else to take their journey. And this is how the Holy Spirit works with us in the dream, because we need to go on a journey and we need to undo the ego. And so that feels like some kind of expansion, some kind of extension is happening. And so we have these words in our language. Remember, all language is dualistic. Language can't really describe revelation. As he said, revelation is literally indescribable. It's unspeakable because it's a pure experience. But by going through these experiences, you can open yourself to that mystic experience of revelation. And then then you have knowledge, then you know for sure. You go through this and you have an experience like this, then you don't doubt anymore. You know because you had the experience. So, we're all on the journey. And if you haven't quite had it yet, that's okay, because it's coming. Just know that if you continue on this journey, these are the archetypes. You will at some point have a mystic experience. And when that's going to happen, you don't know. That's not up to you. It's just up to you to keep journeying through this, the challenges and the temptations, and letting them go, using this forgiveness or letting go methodology that Jesus is teaching us to undo our egos. He's saying, I can't teach you this. I can't teach you revelation. I can't teach you the meaning of love. That will come when you're ready. But I can teach you how to let go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. That's something that you can learn and that you can practice day by day, which is what we're doing, these course lessons. Does that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's levels. You got to just recognize which level you're working at. Say, okay, yes, I'm in the level of form here. I'm in the level of the ego, but within the level of the ego, these ideas are helpful, and they're going to help me to transcend the level of the ego. You got to start somewhere, but it's not ultimate truth. Extension of pure formless awareness is not the ultimate truth, because we are pure formless awareness. Actually, in truth, I am that presence. Actually, there's no extension. I just am it, and it is me, and there's no separation. The true at one moment is I am that is me. There's no separation, there's no distinction. So I don't feel like I'm an extension of it. No, I am it. I'm all of it, the whole of it, and it's infinite and it's eternal. So it feels very expanded and extensive by comparison to the ego. Okay. So anyone else going to share? Let's just say hello to Lucy and Sue. Hi, Sue. I don't know if you're still there.
Sue's just popped out for a minute.
Popped out. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Jono. Hi, everyone. Yeah, good morning. Going to this wake in the woods after my friend died.
Okay.
I'm really sensing that, the story of death is not a true story. I felt, it's a very different experience being close to the remains, being close to the body. We were dancing in the woods where there's still an investigation, and feeling as well, even through the grief and everybody crying together, somehow that being important, but this sense of really the sense of the oneness. So yeah, it's been a really just a beautiful morning for feeling the purity of that, actually.
Did you feel like she hasn't really gone? She's just not physical, but she's not.
It really felt, yeah. It felt
that it hasn't ceased to exist. That's not the case.
Totally. It felt that actually the suffering parts had gone. It just felt whatever had been suffering was no longer suffering. And then that joy of pure formless awareness, that expansiveness felt really present. So when I tuned into her, I didn't feel like, wow, there's somebody still suffering. There is nobody there suffering. It would only be my interpretation of that would create that drama within myself. So I was really conscious of the other, and I'm very lucky to be in a circle with people who are aware of that. So the grieving felt very kind of full and light, and yeah, it was really extraordinary, very extraordinary to share that with others. And then to watch my own victim parts going, oh my God, I'm really cold, I'm really wet now, I'm really, like fed up. Kind of watching the physical suffering, just like, oh God, I want to get in the warmth.
Interesting.
And that can take on a little victim voice, that's what I really noticed more than anything. Yeah.
No, it's good you can observe it. And just, okay. But if I observe it, it's not me. I can just kind of observe it, a movement of my mind, and just rise above it and be like, actually, I'm awake. It's you went to awake. I'm awake. It was an awakening. Isn't that interesting? Like a play of words.
That was so. That really went in when you said that. You were telling me what I was saying, and I hadn't heard it. It was like, God, there it is. There's the choice. There is the choice.
Yeah. Okay. Rather than a funeral, it's an awake. It's an awakening. That's lovely. It's an opening into another dimension, because death always offers that opportunity. Go into another dimension and really feeling that, and feeling the peace that comes from that. I mean, who would fear that? It's just such peace.
Yeah.
So why would we resist it so much? Our culture is crazy. It doesn't have a healthy attitude to death at all. Oh no, that shouldn't have happened. Okay, except it happens to everyone. It shouldn't have happened. And we're resisting this, but it happens to everyone at some point. I mean, what kind of sanity is that? That's just mad. So then, of course, it's going to happen. The inevitable is going to happen, and then you're going to suffer because you're going to resist it and say it shouldn't have happened. That's completely crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it?
However it happened. Okay, so her path out was, she died in a fire. Oh, that shouldn't have happened. Well, who are you to say? But it shouldn't have happened. That was how she exited it. So we all die at some point. Whether you die at 100 of old age, and people, oh well, that's okay then. At 100, that's okay. But not at however old she was, 50 or 60 in a fire, because no, that's not okay. Well,
in her
who are you to say?
40s. Yeah.
Who are you to say? You know.
You know what was really interesting was that her partner said that not very long ago she was having a hard time, and he said, look, you're so radiant, you're actually going to spontaneously combust.
Wow. Okay.
Just
and maybe she did.
Yeah.
It's been known to happen.
Yeah.
No one can explain it. How does the body spontaneously combust? I don't know, but I know cases where they've recorded it and they've gone, okay, the people just like seem to spontaneously combust. There was no other explanation for it. There was no external fire. It's like they found the body in ashes, and like sort of char marks around where the person had been sitting on the sofa, and then that's it. And it's like, well, there wasn't a fire. It was just like the body just.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? Maybe that was. And who are you to say it shouldn't have happened? You know?
Yeah.
As I think Patricia says, you know, we all choose to die.
Yeah.
No, not me. The course says we all give ourselves permission to die. None of us leave without permission.
I mean,
so
you're quoting.
It's a very.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing.
You can't die without your own permission, is what it says.
Yeah. So we put ourselves on the timeline, and then we die. You know, you decide to be born, and you decide to die. That's how it goes.
I was listening to someone, I think it's Alan Cohen, who's a very good Course in Miracles teacher. And I was actually giggling the whole way through the thing because he was talking about death. And he says that from the moment you're born, you are deciding to die, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. But we're just choosing different ways, whether it's disease or commit murder. I mean, whether you're murdered or whether it's a heart attack, whatever the choice is. But we have, and sometimes we're killing ourselves slowly by smoking or drinking or any of that. But actually, we're contributing to our choice to leave. And it was such an interesting, I can't remember where I was reading or listening to it, but it was a very interesting thing. And if we begin to see, everything that we're doing is so that we can leave the illusion. We don't want to be here forever. Why would we want to be here?
So just accepting that and not being scared of it. It's like, actually, death is graduation day. If you've done your work and you've really corrected your mind, death is graduation day. You're like, hey, hallelujah, I'm out of here. I can leave this world of form behind. I can leave the body behind, all the pain and the suffering and sickness and whatever else, and I can go back home. And that's a celebration, which I like the idea of awake, because it's a celebration. You went back home. And it's a celebration of that awakening for that person, that they went back home. They might return.
My teacher,
they've got karma still. They will, but they're fine. They're in a much better state than we are in our illusory dream. Yeah. Sorry, Patricia. What did you say?
My teacher Terry, before he passed on, he said that actually, if you look at people's lives, about 3 weeks before anyone's about to die, whether they die in a car accident or they're murdered or they die naturally, they've already started to prepare everything around them for their death. It's if you actually go back and look at it. And when Terry decided to leave his body, because he definitely decided, the 2 days before he phoned me. He never phoned anybody from our group, but he phoned me because we'd had quite meaningful conversations. But only after he died did I realize that he'd actually phoned me to say goodbye. And I took Terry's death quite badly.
I remember.
More because I thought, how am I going to survive without him? You know, who's going to be my teacher? Who's going to help me? But actually what he'd said to me that day is, it's time for me to go so that you can grow. And I hadn't actually heard it until after his death. And sometimes even our teachers need to leave so that we, the people who can grow and continue the work or have a life away from just relying on that person. And he'd been in the Italian embassy. They were getting a Schengen visa because they were supposed to be going to Italy for Christmas. And he looked at his wife and he said, I'm not going to be with you. And she thought he had other plans, never realizing he was not actually going to be around at all. So if you actually look at people's lives, and I'm sure if you look at your friend's life, there were things she was doing that were already her decision that she was going to leave without maybe her knowing consciously, but subconsciously she knew.
Yeah.
John,
Mm-hmm.
when I started doing this work, I found it very hard to understand the course and things like that. But on my birthday about 10 years ago, if not a bit more, I was talking to my daughter had phoned me and asked me what I wanted to do and did I want to go to dinner. And in that moment of talking to her, I went, but I'm such a burden to you. And as I said those words to her, I said, I'm so sorry, I can't talk to you anymore. I need to put the phone down. I'll phone you back. The moment I said those words and I saw what I was saying, I went, oh my word, I believe I'm a burden. I believe that this is my block. This is my first block to the awareness of love's presence. And it was such a huge relief for me. Oh my word, I began to see them one after the other after that. So I just wanted to share with you, the moment you have that first experience, even if it's that simple, you're going to go, oh my word, yes, this is what's happening and that's what's happening. And then you will just open up to the whole experience of what the course is about.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Patricia. We'll go into blocks and naming your game on Sunday, so don't miss Sunday session because it's follow on from last Sunday. We'll go into exercise 7 and everyone's gonna get to see what that game is and turn it around, flip your flop. So don't miss that. Okay, let's say hello to Katie. Katie, anything to share? Or shall we go into the lesson?
I do have something to share.
Okay.
But first I have to, my phone battery is very low.
Okay. Do you want to get that charging?
Yes, I get that charging. Oh, and I'm here. I can see how I'm using one of my friends to feel like I was just right now I was at his, we are also neighbors, so I was at his place and I just used him. I was just judging about what he's doing and why it's not worthy and why he's not lovable when he's doing that, and like how he's living his life. And I see that I'm doing that because I want to feel unworthy, or because I think I want to feel unworthy. It's like I can't accept, like there's this fear, like I'm wanting to hold on to the idea that I'm unworthy. I can see, like, if I would accept that he is worthy and no matter what he's doing, I would also. It's like, okay, so all the meaning I gave to everything is like collapsing, because what I thought is not unworthy is actually worthy. And what I thought which is worthy is not worthy.
Interesting. So we'll go into this on Sunday about worthiness and unworthiness and flipping your flop, because that's what it comes down to. Like you notice that this affects all of your interactions with people. It permeates through your life, this core belief in these ways. And as you start to see it, well, that's part of the awakening. You can then undo it, question it, and start undoing it, saying, well, if I'm worthy, if I really know that I'm worthy, then I must see that other people also are, irrespective of their behavior, because they're the same as me. They come from the same source. We have the same awareness ultimately. But if you don't feel like you're worthy, then how can you see worth in anyone else? If someone is behaving in ways that deny your self-worth, and just understand that's a reflection of them. They don't feel worthy, and they're projecting that onto you, and you don't have to take it. As the Buddha said, someone was heaping abuse on him, and he took it for a while, and then eventually the guy paused and he said, well, let me ask you a question. If you're trying to give someone a gift and they don't accept it, then whose gift is it?
In the same way, like if you want to attack someone, who are you attacking really when they don't accept it? That's also what he said.
Well, that was the Buddha's, the guy was attacking him, like verbally abusing, and he just said, I don't accept your gift. So whose gift is it then? Well, it's still yours. Okay. So all of that stuff you're projecting onto me, the hatred and the abuse and the vitriol, it's you. It's your gift. I don't accept it. It's yours. And so you don't have to accept it. And you accept it when you make it real in your mind and you react to it mentally and emotionally. If you don't accept it, it's like, okay, well, it's not mine. It's the other person's. Keep it. You're projecting onto me. I don't have to accept it. But to have that awareness of who you really are, that allows you to do that. Because you see, it's just false. All of that is just not true. If there's a resonance and you still believe somewhere that you're not worthy, then someone projects their stuff onto you, and then you it activates the program, and then you feel that lack of self-worth again arising, and then the answer is forgiveness. Okay, well, let it go, because it's not true. Restore your mind to who you really are. So we'll go into this on Sunday in some detail. Everyone's going to have a chance to flip their flop, and we'll talk everyone through their own flipping their flop process, which is the awakening, which is the transformation. This is what's depicted on this hero's journey, going into the abyss, the death and the rebirth into another self. That's what it means. Okay, so I think everyone's had a chance to share. Shall we have a look at the lesson? I think for today, the quote. Yes. So this quote is from the course, from the workbook, the insert on what is the ego. So you can have a look at that if you want. What is the ego? And it comes from paragraph 4. So who wants to read it? Katie, will you read that for us? Paragraph 4, please.
To know reality is not to see the ego and its thoughts. It works, it acts, it works, it acts, its flaws, and its beliefs, its dreams, its hopes, its plans for its salvation, and the cost belief in it entails. And suffering, the price for faith in it, is so immense that crucifixion of the Son of God is offered daily as its darkened shrine, and blood must flow before the altar where its sickly followers prepare to die. Oh, I can't sleep with that.
You can't sleep with that.
No. That would be the last thing I read. I couldn't sleep.
Okay, well, it won't be, fortunately.
Practice of letting go.
This is one of the stick lessons that Jesus gives us. I call them carrot and stick. So some of them are beautiful, and then he has these passages where he just tells us straight, this is what the ego is, and just how dark it is. and this is one of those. So price for faith in it is so immense. The crucifixion of the, you want to translate that, the crucifixion of the extension of pure formless awareness. The extension of love is offered daily at its darkened shrine. So he's talking about all the death and the suffering that goes on in this world. Blood must flow before the altar where its sickly followers prepare to die.
Must change the darkness into light and the altar of illusion to the shrine of life itself. And peace will be restored.
Yeah, read the. We won't leave because he doesn't leave us there. So fortunately, he never leaves you in the darkness of the ego. So do you want to read the last one, Patricia?
Oh, sorry. Yet will one lily of forgiveness change the darkness into light. The altar to illusions. Sorry. The altar to illusions to the shrine of life itself, and peace will be restored forever in the holy minds which God created as his Son, and peace will be restored in the holy minds from which pure formless awareness created its extension, its dwelling place, its joy, its love, completely his. It's completely one with it forever.
Yeah, which is the antidote to the. So now can you sleep, Katie? That's a nice antidote to the suffering and the crucifixion and the death and the blood flowing before the altar. That is the previous image. It's amazing. I mean, amazing use of language, really, because he takes us from like literally the depths of hell, and then in another sentence into the transcendence of heaven, just through words. It's amazing. So yeah, that was the quote, and it's just in the context of saying, it's about releasing our guilt. And I don't know if you read this, but there's an interesting little vignette on morals and ethics. So a lot of the time we go, oh, well, that's ethical or that's moral. And it's based on the world's laws. And then we go, oh, no, well, now the ego's got us because we think that that's the right thing to do. The ethics, so-called ethics, are actually egoic ethics. They're ethics designed to perpetuate the materialistic and linear point of view. And this is how the world's laws were made up. So the most helpful ethical standard is simply to say, well, does this actually create suffering for anyone or not? Or does it create peace and joy? If I'm causing or perpetuating the suffering of another living being, then it's not correct. That's the ethical standard. But if that's not the case, in the case of Mbali, it was just a work thing, and she had two commitments, and she had to kind of fudge one and kind of say, yes, I can't do this because I've got to do another one. And I said, well, did it actually hurt anyone? And she said, no, it didn't really. So I said, well, then what are you guilty for? You didn't make anyone suffer. It was just the ego coming in to try and make you feel guilty using the so-called, ethical standard that it upholds. So that was an example. Watch the video if you're interested. So it's somebody looking at it and saying, well, if it really does cause suffering, then I need to forgive it or let it go. If it doesn't, then there was never anything to forgive. So nothing ever really happened. But you may still need to go through a process of releasing because you thought something happened, as she did. She thought she really done something wrong and she was guilty. And she just needed to recognize that was not the case. There was no suffering was ever caused. She didn't do anything wrong. And when she got that, the guilt just dropped away. So it's worth watching this. Then Bakang talked about the hero's journey and didn't want to carry on doing the job he's doing. So we talked about higher purpose as well. So there's a recording there for you if you'd like to watch that. Okay, so let's have a look at the lesson today, shall we? Lucy, will you read the key idea and the first paragraph for us, please?
Okay. I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. The idea for today is obviously the reason why your seeing does not affect you alone. You will notice that at times the ideas related to thinking precede those related to perceiving, while at the other times the order is reversed. The reason is that the order does not matter. Thinking and its results are really simultaneous, for cause and effect are never separate.
Okay. So any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, just not to be trusted, really. Thoughts, all the perception. Because they go hand in hand.
And why is that? Yeah.
I found it interesting because I thought in a lesson a couple of days ago that it was saying thought always comes first, but actually that it's could be thought or it could be perception, and either way it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think the thought comes first. He's referring to the metaphysics of this, saying, we first thought of separation. There was no perception at this point. We thought of separation, and then we miscreated an illusion of an external world, which then created perception. And now we're caught up in this dream of projected thought. Thought comes first, perception, and actually these are actually simultaneous. There's a moment you think, then there's the effect. There's effects in your mind. You think a negative thought, the effects in your mind straight away. This is what he's trying to say. He's trying to collapse the duality and just say, look, this is all one movement. Perception and projection are all one movement of mind. And there is no real separation between them. It's all thought. Because you perceive, perception is thought, isn't it? The thinking and its results are already simultaneous, for cause and effect are never separate. So yeah, on the timeline, if you want to go to this timeline, it seems, can you see that diagram?
No, we see a white screen.
Right. Okay. Let me stop the share, and I'll start the share again. Then I can show it. Maybe you can see it now.
Yes.
Yeah. So on the timeline, it seems like cause and effect are separate. So I think something, then I take an action, then I get a result, and this all plays out in time, not simultaneously. But this is part of the ego's illusion, that there's some kind of gap between cause and effect, but actually in truth there isn't. And so these lessons are designed to collapse that in our minds. Actually thinking its results are already simultaneous, cause and effect are never separate. In other words, my mind and the results of my thinking are actually happening simultaneously, and so I start to raise myself above the timeline of cause and effect, and I start to go into mind, which points us in the direction of pure formless awareness, collapsing time and space, saying the order doesn't really matter. Okay? We're happy with paragraph 1?
Yeah.
So number 2, John, will you read that for us?
Today we are again emphasizing the fact that minds are joined. This is rarely a wholly welcome idea at first, since it seems to carry with it an enormous sense of responsibility, and may even be regarded as an invasion of privacy. Yet it is a fact that there are no private thoughts. Despite your initial resistance to this idea, you will yet understand that it must be true if salvation is possible at all. And salvation must be possible because it is the will of God.
The will of love. So anything stand out for you there?
I thought a different way of looking at it is the freedom which comes with that. Like, so if we are all one, I don't need to try to make sense of all the meaninglessness I see, and I will be like we share common sense. We have the same interests, and starting to see that I can let go of fighting. And that I'm actually living in a world where fighting is not needed because it's not under the laws of the ego and it's under the laws of God. It's a different way of seeing this for me when I give up privacy.
So idea of private thoughts is one of the ego's bastions. It's like, I think I have private thoughts, which keeps my mind separate from other minds. So the idea of privacy is an ego idea, and just be aware as it shows up. Oh no, I don't want people to know. Well, what are you hiding? So the ego doesn't want its thoughts to be known because they're not nice thoughts. And then you're hiding. You go, oh no, thank God no one can see my thoughts. But the truth is that that goes into the one mind. Actually, your thoughts are shared. As today's lesson says, I'm not alone experiencing the effects of my thoughts. It's going into the mind. There's only one mind. It's going into the quantum field, or the morphic field, whatever you want to call it, of mind. And you think a thought, it's not private. It goes into that whole soup mix of thoughts that people are thinking all the time. And you either contribute with each thought to truth or to illusion. Those are the choices. There's a fact that there are no private thoughts. So in other words, don't hide anything. Don't go, oh, I'm thinking that thought. I don't want that person to know. Because if you're hiding, then you've got something to hide. That's the ego. So this is an opening. If you're truly in the spirit, there's nothing to hide. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just pure formless awareness streaming through in loving, happy, peaceful, joyful, blessing thoughts. What's to hide? Why wouldn't you want to share those? Sorry, someone wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say, no matter how much you try and hide your private thoughts, eventually they play out in your life, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, eventually they get revealed. And then you're like, well, they actually weren't private. It shows you they weren't really private, actually, because it is all shared. And if you've got a deep, dark secret and you don't want to reveal it, and that just sits with you and it torments you until you're actually willing to release it. So they say, like, if someone has done some supposedly heinous crime, like a murderer or something, they actually want to confess. They want to confess because it's like a release of that private thought and all the guilt that goes with it, and they actually feel a relief when they do confess. So okay, finally, like I've let that go. It's not just held with me. I've actually spoken it, and then they feel a kind of a catharsis, even though they might end up in prison for the rest of their life because they confessed to the police or something. But they feel that, and they actually want to do it because it releases them from this burden of carrying this private secret thought and the guilt that goes with it. So be aware of this. This is a way that the ego, unfortunately, can sabotage you. There was a chap last year who joined the course, and he got the huff in because he thought that his privacy had been invaded. He shared something with me privately, and then I mentioned it in one of our expression sessions. There's some other people present. He said, well, you violated my privacy. And I was like, well, no one even noticed. Because I asked everyone, and no one even noticed. It's like it was a non-entity for everyone. They didn't even register that there was. But he was like, oh, you violated my privacy. And so he took himself out of a process that could have helped him. Yeah, because he could have continued on this journey. And that was his ego just trying to sabotage them through this idea of private thoughts. So it's another little trick you need to be aware of. Okay, so any
I don't understand that example.
well, so he shared something with me, like in private, like just one-on-one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'd mentioned it in a, he was going to see, I think, a hypnotherapist, and it was no big deal, really. It's just like I didn't. So I shared that. I said, oh, in the group session, I said, how was the session? It's like just asked him the question, and he felt that was an invasion of his privacy because he'd shared that in confidence. He didn't want that to be shared with the group, but like I said to him, but no one even registered like that was anything untoward. It wasn't like some deep dark secret being revealed. It's just like, yeah, you went to a hypnotherapy session. It's like, so what?
But I don't see that. I don't see that that's a good argument to say, okay, if it's, I mean, it's how he feels about it. It's for him something personal, and it's not about how people react. Like maybe in another session there would be someone who reacts. So I don't have that problem what he has, but I can see that.
But
So
it was based on the idea of private thoughts.
Yeah,
like
it was.
he had this idea of privacy, and what Jesus is saying is a fact. There are no private thoughts. So why are you making your thoughts private when they're not?
Yeah, but I can't push him to that knowledge.
Well, yeah, you could just say this is what the course says, and then he accepts it or he didn't. And
Yeah, that's right.
in his instance, he didn't. He just chose to leave, which was then shooting himself in the foot because this is a process of awakening, and that could have helped him. But I'm just using it as example because it was an example, and he actually had a diagram that he'd drawn in the Name Your Game exercise of in the first exercise 1, where there was all these like ego detours, like sidetracks. He'd drawn a highway, and then there was all these like branches going off, and he said, oh yeah, the ego wants me to take that, and it's really just a detour off the path. So he recognized that there was a temptation, and yet then the ego got him on this privacy idea. So it's worth seeing like how privacy can, like the idea of private thoughts can come in to sabotage you, because it's not actually a true concept. If there's only one mind, then the idea of private thoughts is not true in any sense of the word at all. And the course doesn't make exceptions. He just says there are no private thoughts. End of, period. You think they're private, but they're not really. So be aware of that temptation. Okay, so that kind of takes us into the practice part of it, really. So shall I guide you through a little meditation now? Unless there are any comments, questions on this lesson? It's a pretty straightforward lesson, but again, straightforward, it's pointing to the whole truth. Each lesson, if you're starting to notice how the lessons point you back to the whole truth of God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness. Each lesson takes you.
Oh, yeah, just to make more space. Just to make well, I can, but just make more space for the milk. That'd be really good.
Okay. Hi, Liz. Have you arrived at Iona?
The best, isn't it? One of the best yoga teas this one. It's so
No,
good.
she's not with you.
I've only just discovered
Somewhere
it.
else. Okay.
You need to mute this for a minute.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So should we any other comments or questions, or should we go into a little bit of meditation?
I just a little story on that privacy thing. I got my sister into Course in Miracles, and then she took an ego huff, and that's lasted for years. So it's just it just showed to me just how when we're very involved in the miracles and we get the idea that the ego is the enemy, but then it's so shifty because there's many amongst us, and I include myself, that can suddenly get a huff and feel this is all about me. How very dare you? How dare you share that piece of information that I thought was just for you? And out it went. It was feedback about the course, and the course tutor sort of let it out and said, isn't this fab? She had a great breakthrough, and there's her name. And she just turned her back, and that was about 10 years ago. Shame.
Wow. And you still don't communicate with her?
Oh no, I communicate with my sister. It's just that the teaching of the Course in Miracles and the teacher involved in the Course in Miracles is history for her.
Right. Okay. Because she felt like her privacy had been violated.
Yes.
Yeah. And isn't that just a great ego defense against actually just doing the work and go, okay, I'll actually study this and learn. So you gotta recognize these are all just defenses, and the ego's got many, and it's very cunning and sly and like
absolutely. But I also go back to Jesus saying sometimes we have to use a bit of magic and spells, you know, in order to not push somebody right back into fear, which is the last thing we want. And I think that there could have been a little bit of magic and spells and a little bit of thought for somebody who had just come into the process. But that was it.
Yeah. To help her. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a delicate thing because the truth, the pure truth, not everyone's ready to accept.
Exactly.
And so then it's like, okay, well, how do I teach it and help them without turning them away?
Yeah.
Was it John? John, you mentioned an instance where some teacher she'd actually taken up smoking in order to bring her pupil on board because the pupil was a smoker, and so she went, okay, well, I need to do that temporarily to like get this person's confidence to bring her into the light, and then I'll give it up, which then happened a year or two later, something like that. John, did you share that story?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, interesting.
That
just so that person could get the confidence and they could kind of take the next step. And you say, well, smoking's not very spiritual, but then she did it from the point of love, of saying, yeah, well, I'm doing this because this is, I think, what's going to work for this person to get their confidence and allow them to kind of go on this path. So it's not the act itself, it's like, what's the intention behind it? Is it a healing intent or is it an egoic intent?
Is it more there are no private thoughts though? Because there are no private thoughts. The way I feel about it is that there are no private thoughts in the sense of we have thoughts and pure formless awareness, God love, is aware of them. But until we act them out, they are our thoughts.
Well, I'm not sure he's saying that. He's saying because there's only one mind. There's only one mind really dreaming the dream of the universe. So you think from this perspective, the separated perspective, on the timeline, that you are a character and you've got all these thoughts and you think they're your thoughts. But the truth is there's only one mind. So they can't be your thoughts. Right?
I'm just thinking though that when I have negative thoughts about somebody, I mean, I like to sit down and write them out. And I will write them in an extreme form because it just helps get it out of my system. Helps me get to truth. But I'd be very upset if the person read those thoughts that I'd written down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily appropriate on the level of form to share something because someone might take it the wrong way. But the truth of the matter is they're still not private thoughts. You think those thoughts, and on some level that goes into the quantum field, and it's there for in the mind. So we think, oh, I'm thinking the thought, but no one knows, so that's okay. But actually, it's going into this quantum field, morphic field, and it's having an effect. So that person on some level knows that you're thinking that about them, even if it's not a conscious level. And that's why when you genuinely do change your mind, then often the relationship changes. Like, oh, suddenly the person's much more open or accessible, or there's been a shift because there are no private thoughts. Those thoughts weren't private. There's only one mind dreaming the dream of the universe. comes from oneness. Even the ego mind, there's only really one mind dreaming the dream of separation. There's one ego mind, which is an illusion, and one spirit, one true mind. So this is what he's pointing us to. The idea there's no private thoughts connects us with the idea there's only one mind. And I'm not really an individual. I think I'm individual. Why do you think why do you think you're individual? Because you have a body. You think you have a body, and you think the separation that you see in the body applies to the mind. But that's not true, because we're not dealing on the same level. The mind is actually free of the body. The mind is in a different order of reality. So you think a thought, that's now in the domain of mind. And then you go, oh, well, because I'm a separate body, that's somehow now a private thought. But that's just not true. That's a level confusion. You're confusing the level of the body with the level of the mind by thinking they're private thoughts. And you're saying that's not true, because you're not alone experiencing the effects of your thoughts. They go into the one mind, and they are experienced by everyone in the one mind, actually. Which is quite a responsibility, as he says. This can seem to be a huge responsibility. But it's actually a wake-up call. So be vigilant of your thoughts, because this is going into the whole mind. So they're no private thoughts. Oh, I think a bad thought about someone. That goes into the whole mind. On some level, they're affected. Everyone's affected. I think a thought of fear or anger or hatred or attack, then I'm contributing to that in the world. We all live in one mind. And if I'm thinking those kinds of thoughts, I perpetuate the ego and all of its insanity in the world. Do I really want to do that? Or actually, do I want to think thoughts of peace and love and joy and perpetuate that reality in this world?
So how do we escape? Can I ask a question from other people's negative thoughts? Because if negative thoughts are kind of going into the collective mind and contaminating it, then how can we protect ourselves from that, even if we get our own negativity under control?
Well, because actually it's still your mind.
Forgiveness.
Yeah. It's still your mind. They're just a projection of your own mind. So you go, oh, it's not my mind, but it is your mind. It's just an aspect of your mind that seems to be in another form, because it's all one mind, right? We're all doing this. We all had the idea of separation. So if someone is projecting their negativity onto you, then it's the idea of separation, this ego mind, that's seemingly affecting you. So now you have the choice. Do I accept this or not? Do I believe this story that the so-called person and the projection of this mind is telling me? Or can I change my perception of it and simply recognize that it's not true? Which is the forgiveness or the letting go that takes you back to that awareness. So it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. You have the choice as to how you want to perceive it. And that's what we're training here. The art of letting go is simply knowing, yes, I can always let it go.
But do we have the choice? If it's all one mind and people are contaminating the collective space, then do we have a choice to not be affected by that?
Well, what do you think? Would we be doing this work if we didn't have a choice? We'd all go, oh, well, we're just slaves to this collective mind. There's no choice here. We can't.
But it says there are no private thoughts. So that, okay, it doesn't mean you necessarily need to be negatively impacted, but you will be aware of it. Other people, the negativity in the space. Doesn't mean you need to adopt it.
You don't have to believe it. So the choice you then have is between these two thought systems. And there's only two thought systems going on. There's God or love or oneness or pure formless awareness, which reinterprets the dream. Doesn't matter what's happening here in this mad red scrum. It'll reinterpret it and simply say this isn't true. Only pure formless awareness, only love is true. And then you have the ego's thought system that's going to interpret all of this as very real and painful, and there's suffering and sickness and death, and you need to be very affected by it. And that makes you into a victim of the world. And there's only actually two minds, two thought systems playing out in the world. That's all that's going on. So now which will you choose? Someone says something, bad about you, they're attacking you, whatever, well, you have a choice. Which mind am I going to use to respond to this? Am I going to use the ego, which makes it all real? Then I feel angry, I feel fearful, I want to attack them back, whatever. Or do I reinterpret it from the perspective of oneness and simply say, this is not true because the ego is not true. And this entire thought system of sin and guilt and fear and attack is not true, and so it has no effect on me, and so I let it go. And then either way, there's no private thoughts. So if you forgive, there's no private thoughts. That goes into the quantum field, and on some level, that person will know that, and they'll be affected. Not necessarily consciously so, but then you are contributing to the healing of that relationship rather than the continuing madness. If you believe the ego, then you perpetuate in the madness. So no private thought doesn't mean we don't have a choice. We absolutely do have a choice, and that choice will affect the whole mind. So you choose to forgive, then you choose to be part of that one-man process that's the true reason for why we're here. You choose to hold on and to get angry and upset, then you choose the ego and you choose to maintain the separation and everything that goes with it. Does that make sense, Elaine?
Janet,
So
Jono, can I add something?
Yeah.
The other hard part of doing this course is lessons that we only just not even scraping the top of the iceberg. We just like it's one snowdrop on top. The other part is we get deeper and deeper into the course is that everybody who shows up in your life, regardless of what they are, who they are, is a reflection of who you are. So if you're only seeing the bad in them, there's something in you that's causing you to see that, because nothing's actually happening in the world. That's the scary thing. Nothing's happening here. No one's ever done anything to any of us. And the course is very clear about this as we get into it. But I'm just touching on it, that whatever we're seeing is what we want to see. And that's scary, that we actually want people to be bad. We want things to be wrong. We want COVID. We want a tsunami. We want the economy to fail. We say, oh, no, that's not what we want. But actually it is, because it's showing up for us. And that's the scary part, is that we're responsible. The Course has a whole little verse on it, for everything that we see. And that's scary, because we're choosing to see it.
So to be a victim of the world, what does every victim need? Well, you have to have a persecutor, don't you? Otherwise you wouldn't be a victim. So if that's your identity, then you have to have things and people that show up in your life to persecute you and treat you unfairly, so that you can maintain your victim identity. Or I'm being so unfairly treated.
Coming to a point where I see the persecutors I have are not persecutors. Like, they don't do anything. I'm like, my ego is really hyper vigilant. It's like, oh, someone looked at me. Oh, he looked at me. This is so painful. Like that. It's like nothing. I don't experience any threat. Like, no one around me is like mean in any way, and still I can feel victimized.
If you think you're a victim, if that's your program, your flop, then you will interpret everything that you see in this seemingly external world. You will interpret it from that perspective, and you will go, people are victimizing me, even if they're not. Even if they say have the intention of doing it, you will see that that's the case, because that's your program. They
say hello, and I can feel victimized.
No, they looked at me funny. That's how the ego plays mind games with us. It's continuously misinterpreting everything that happens in the seemingly external world to perpetuate its story of being a victim. And until you're willing to challenge the story and say, look, this identity just isn't true, then it will continue. You will keep interpreting. Your perception will keep interpreting everything as reinforcement of that story. And there's no way out of that until you're willing to change your mind and say, well, maybe I'm not a victim. Actually, maybe I'm love. Maybe I'm all of it, and none of this is true. And that's the flipping your flop. That's the turnaround, which we're going to look at on Sunday. Okay, so let's go into the meditation, shall we? So just put yourselves on mute. I'll put you on mute. So just making yourselves comfortable. Sitting with your feet shoulder width apart. You're standing up. Back straight, cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And just start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So you're breathing in, notice how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And clench your sphincter muscles so you lock the energy in. Feel this warm wave of energy rising up the spine. To your heart center, put one hand on your heart, connecting with your heart space. And then draw the energy all the way up into the crown of your head. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. And you're just going to check in and scan your mind. So say to yourself, I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. And then just search your mind for any thoughts that it contains. And as you consider each one, just name it in terms of the central person or theme it contains. And holding in your mind as you do this, say, I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of this thought about whoever or whatever it is. And if another thought arises, repeat, I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of this thought about whoever or whatever. And as you exhale, just have a sense of releasing. You're just letting it go. Imagine it's helpful that this thought is like a cloud just drifting by. It has no power really to obscure the eternal sky in your mind. Just let it go and you release to the nothingness that it really is. Just breathe out, pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And you just rest in peace and stillness. For a few moments, the quietness and the gap between breaths can enter into the state of pure formless awareness. So breathing in, notice how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Clenching the sphincter muscle slightly. You feel a warm wave of energy rising up the spine into your heart center. drawing it up into the crown of your head. Pause at the top of the inhale, and just repeat the exercise. So notice any thoughts going on and be indiscriminate. So it doesn't matter what's crossing your mind, whatever the thought is, use it. So just randomly select whatever the thought is. Don't exclude any thoughts. Jesus' lack of order in this connection will ultimately make the recognition of lack of order in miracles meaningful to you. So this idea, I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts, applies to all your thoughts. So apply it specifically to whatever thought arises. I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of this thought about, and then name it by the central person or situation, event, circumstance, object, whatever it is. I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of this thought about whatever. Again, blow it away with the breeze of your breath as you exhale. Letting it go into the nothingness that it really is. And feeling that surrender. Just let it go. Find a stillness and a calmness. In the gap between breaths, you enter into pure formless awareness. Beyond duality, in that gap lies what's beyond this world, eternity and infinity. So just for a few minutes, allow yourself to go there. Done some mind training, which prepares you for the experience of revelation, the mystic experience of union with your source. So just open yourself to that. Because in this experience, all your answers will come. There's no more questions when you experience the truth. So open yourself to that experience. Give yourself over to it. The next few minutes of deep silence, just breathing in and out through your nose. Observe the subtle sensations of the breath in your nostrils. Just observe the breath flowing in and out of the nostrils. Observe the touch of the breath on the bottom of the nose, tip of the nose, and this area just below your nose, between your nose and your upper lip. And so by focusing all your attention on the breath, you stay present. Stop the wandering monkey mind. It might still come in. If it does, just apply today's idea to whatever thoughts arise. I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of this thought about whatever it is. And then let it go. With the breeze of your breath, you exhale and just release it like a cloud just being blown away by the breeze of your breath. And thoughts are like clouds, they have no substance. They are not true or real, they are impermanent, shifting, changing, disappearing if you allow them to the nothingness they really are. To reveal the blue sky of your true awareness. So go into that blue sky. There's nothing else to do, there's nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to think about. Just keep breathing, observing your breath, and sinking inwards to the clear blue sky of your pure formless awareness. Maybe have a sense of the light of your source shining through that awareness. And just surrender to that experience. There's nothing else that you really want in life. Give yourself over fully to this. experience of the light, who you really are. For the next few minutes of deep silence. And if any thoughts arise, just notice these. Like cloud patterns, they have no true reality. So remind yourself, I'm not alone experiencing the effects of this thought about whatever or whoever, and exhale, just release it. And you just watch it fade away. You start to learn that your thoughts are not true and real. Most of them are true and real, they're just shifting, changing cloud patterns. And if you cloud your mind with these thoughts, then you cloud the mind of the Son of God, the whole extension, which we all share. You contribute to an illusion rather than truth. Is that something you really want to do? Consider that. Answer is surely obvious. So sink back into the silence, the stillness of the clear blue sky of your true awareness. Give yourself over to that experience for another couple of minutes of deep silence, just pure thoughtless awareness. Pure thoughtless awareness. Allow that experience to arise for you in the next 2 minutes of deep silence. And so gently coming back. Some awareness of the body and the breath. Maybe awareness drifted away from the body and the breath. Just went within and there was no awareness. All the senses of the world for a while. Notice how peaceful and lovely that felt. This is a little glimpse of your true home. State of pure formless awareness beyond the body, beyond the world. As you get more and more of these glimpses, you start to accept more and more that this is the truth of who you really are. This is your home. This is the only state you desire. And so the awakening quickens. Start to have less and less tolerance for the ego and all of its crazy thoughts. So on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle, noticing that. Notice any subtle flow of energy rising up the spine to the crown of your head, pausing at the top of the inhale. Take another sip of air in, maximal inhale breath, pause, and just scan your mind again. Notice any thoughts going on there, and notice them objectively, like clouds just drifting by at a lower level. And you just apply today's idea to them one more time. Say, I'm not alone experiencing the effects of this thought about whatever it is, whoever it is. And as you exhale, blow it away with the breeze of your breath into the nothingness it really is. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And you rest on the count of 2. Feel the weight of your body pressing down into the chair. And the weight of your feet on the ground. Notice what you're touching with your hands. Notice any subtle flow of air on your skin. Breathe that air in. Notice any smell in your nose as you do that. Any taste in your mouth. Notice what you're hearing from the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm and surrendered state. Just allow everything to rise and pass away. There's no attachment to any of it. No attachment to your thoughts. Remind yourself one more time, I'm not alone experiencing the effects of my thoughts. There's only one mind. That mind is me, I am that mind. We are all one in that mind. So it is. So it is said, so it is done. On the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take 30 seconds or a minute to look around. Remind yourself that you're not alone experiencing the effects of what you see. All the objects around you. So let your eyes rest for a few seconds on each one and say, I'm not alone experiencing the effects of my seeing. Because I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. My thoughts affect my seeing, my perception. I'm not alone experiencing the effects of my perception because I'm not alone experiencing the effects of my thoughts. You start to see that your perception and your thought are not really separate. In fact, as Jesus says, thinking and its results are really simultaneous, for cause and effect are never separate. So the order doesn't really matter. So one more time, remind yourself, I'm not alone experiencing the effects of my thoughts. Use that to anchor you into this state of presence for the rest of the afternoon. And practice this again using a short breath break. which I'll send you after this. And do join us this evening for the evening session at the normal time, 6:30 UK time, 7:30 German time, 8:30 South African time. I hope to see you all then. Thanks for joining this afternoon, and namaste.
Namaste.